The city outside my office window glittered like it always did. Steel towers, headlights threading down Fifth Avenue, the faint shimmer of a skyline I once dreamed of escaping to. On mornings like this, I usually sipped my coffee, adjusted the silk collar of my blouse, and convinced myself that I'd finally left the past where it belonged. Hidden. Buried. But trauma has a way of humming under the skin like a quiet electric current. I wore success the way other women wore perfume. Elegant, polished, perfectly controlled. But underneath, there were scars no makeup or a tailored suit could disguise. My phone buzzed on the glass desk. Once. Twice. Relentlessly. I almost ignored it. Clients, assistants, invitations, I lived in a world of endless noise. But when I glanced at the screen, my throat tightened. It was my mother. For years, she had been a ghost in my life, a shadow I refused to chase. And yet, seeing her name flash in bold letters dragged me back to a night I had promised myself I'd never relive. My heart stuttered. My hands curled into fists, careful not to smudge the fresh polish on my nails. I could almost hear her voice already, soft, pleading, demanding silence the way she always had. I thought I'd buried her words, her ultimatums, her betrayal. But in that moment, sitting in my corner office with the city at my feet, I realized something terrifying. The past wasn't done with me. I was 19 the night my world split open. My sister, Emily, stumbled into my bedroom. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, her blouse torn at the collar. She didn't need to say the words. The truth was written across her trembling body. Someone had hurt her. Someone we knew. I wrapped my arms around her, whispering, "You're safe. You're safe with me." But safety was a lie. Within hours, the story unraveled, dragging me into a storm I wasn't prepared for. I remember the hospital lights first, harsh, sterile, glaring down as doctors examined her. I remember the officer's voice, calm but insistent, urging us to make a report. I remember the way my hands shook as I signed my own statement, ready to stand beside her, ready to fight for her. And then I remember my parents. They didn't come to comfort her. They came to control her. My father's jaw was tight, his voice clipped. "We will not drag our family name through the mud. Do you understand?" My mother's hand pressed against my shoulder, nails digging in through my sweater. "Say nothing, Anna. Protect your sister by staying quiet. If you speak, you are no longer our daughter." The words sliced deeper than any wound. Emily's fingers clutched mine, her knuckles white, but she couldn't speak. She was drowning in silence, and they were forcing me under too. I couldn't breathe. My throat closed, hot tears stinging my eyes. I tried to argue, voice breaking. She was assaulted. She deserves justice. But my father's roar cut me off, echoing against the hospital walls. "Enough. You obey us, or you walk out of this family forever." Something inside me cracked that night. Their demand wasn't just silence, it was betrayal. They were choosing reputation over their daughters. Later, alone in my room, I held onto the one piece of comfort I had, my grandmother's silver bracelet, the last gift she gave me before she passed. Etched into its inside curve were 3 tiny words: "Use your voice." She'd always told me I was the fighter in the family, the one who couldn't be tamed. My hands trembled as I clasped it around my wrist, heart pounding with a decision that burned through the fear. If silence meant survival, then I didn't want it. If speaking meant exile, then so be it. For Emily. For myself. I would speak anyway. The night I left home, I carried nothing but a duffel bag, a half-empty wallet, and my grandmother's bracelet pressed against my wrist. I remember staring at the bus station's flickering lights, the smell of stale coffee and diesel thick in the air, telling myself over and over, "Don't look back." But starting over wasn't some glossy miracle. It was survival in its rawest form. I slept on couches borrowed from college friends who pitied me, worked double shifts at a diner where the uniforms smelled of fryer oil, and studied late into the night in public libraries that stayed open past midnight. My heart ached for Emily. I called, I wrote, but the silence from her end was unbearable. My parents had sealed her away, the same way they tried to bury me. Some nights, I cried so hard my chest physically hurt. Some mornings, I almost gave in to the gnawing voice whispering, "You'll never make it without them." Then came Mrs. Carter. She was one of my professors, a woman in her 60s with cropped silver hair and the kind of eyes that saw straight through excuses. One afternoon, after class, she stopped me at the door. "Anna, your writing, it's raw. It's honest. Have you ever thought about turning your voice into something bigger?" I laughed, embarrassed. Voices don't pay rent. But she didn't laugh. Instead, she handed me a business card for a small nonprofit that helps survivors of assault and domestic violence share their stories. "Go. They need someone like you. And you need them." Walking into that cramped office on the corner of 12th Street changed everything. The walls were covered in sticky notes, each with a survivor's name written in bright ink. The director, a woman named Jasmine, shook my hand like she already knew me. She didn't see a girl who had been cut off. She saw potential. At first, I just answered phones, scheduled appointments, made coffee runs. But I listened. I learned. I began drafting grant proposals, writing survivor testimonies, and eventually speaking at small gatherings. My voice, once silenced, was suddenly shaping change. The first time I stood at a podium, knees shaking, microphone buzzing with feedback, I thought I'd collapse. But when I looked into the audience, faces filled with women who had lived through what Emily and I endured, I found my courage. The wins came slowly. My first grant approval, the first paycheck that didn't bounce between overdue bills, the first tiny studio apartment with a leaky faucet but my own key. Each milestone stitched me back together. I kept it all hidden from my family. Social media was a careful dance, smiles with friends, vague captions about busy days, never enough to reveal how far I was climbing. I knew if they saw, they'd try to pull me back, to remind me I owed them silence. But in the quiet hours, when exhaustion blurred my vision, I touched the bracelet and whispered my grandmother's words, "Use your voice." And I did. Over time, my voice became not just survival, but power. The first time I saw my parents again, nearly a decade had passed. It wasn't planned. They showed up at the headquarters of the foundation I now directed, a glass front building on Park Avenue, with our mission etched boldly across the lobby wall. Voices rising, empowering survivors to speak. I had just finished a board meeting when my assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Anna, there are 2 people here asking for you. They said they're your parents." For a moment, the air thinned. My hand froze on the stack of reports. The bracelet on my wrist felt suddenly heavy. I should have said no. I should have told her to send them away. But something inside me whispered, not this time. They need to see. When I stepped into the lobby, I hardly recognized them. My father's hair was grayer, his once commanding shoulders stooped. My mother clutched her handbag tightly, eyes darting nervously, as if the marble floors themselves judged her. "Anna," she whispered, her voice small. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I let them follow me upstairs, past the rows of cubicles filled with young staffers typing passionately, past walls lined with framed magazine covers featuring our work. The silence stretched until we entered my office. My office was my sanctuary, floor-to-ceiling windows spilling light over polished oak floors, shelves lined with survivor anthologies I had edited, and a large framed photograph of me standing beside Jasmine at our first fundraising gala. In the corner sat a leather armchair where I had once cried with exhaustion, now softened into a symbol of perseverance. My parents stood in the doorway, stunned. I watched their eyes flicker across the space. The art, the plaques, the subtle elegance that spoke of years of grit and triumph. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "You've done well for yourself." A bitter smile tugged at my lips. "Despite you, yes. I have." My mother's voice trembled. "Anna, please, we didn't know what else to do back then. We thought we were protecting you. Protecting Emily." I felt heat surge through my chest. Protecting her? By silencing her? By silencing me? Do you know where I ended up because of you? Homeless. Hungry. Alone. But I survived. And now, I stand here because I refuse to obey your version of protection. They flinched at the word obey. I walked behind my desk, deliberately slow, letting the silence weigh heavy. Then I dropped the truth, clear and sharp. I am the founder and director of Voices Rising. We've helped over 10,000 survivors find justice, housing, and healing. I oversee a multi-million-dollar organization. I own this office, this building, and every inch of my independence. Everything you thought I couldn't have without you, I built it. The silence was deafening. My father's jaw slackened. My mother's eyes filled with tears that spilled silently down her cheeks. You own all this, she whispered. I nodded. Every part of it. And I did it without your name, without your money, without your permission. For once, my parents, those towering figures who had once controlled every word I spoke, looked small, powerless. I leaned forward, my voice steady, almost gentle. You came here expecting to see a broken daughter. Instead, you're looking at the woman you tried to bury. And I want you to feel this, every ounce of the shame you placed on me and Emily, because it doesn't belong to us anymore. It belongs to you. Their silence was answer enough. And in that silence, for the first time in my life, I felt utterly, irrevocably free. I let the silence stretch until it became unbearable, until my father shifted uncomfortably in the leather chair across from me. My mother's hands twisted her handbag strap, the same nervous tick I'd seen my entire childhood when she didn't know how to control a situation. Finally, my father broke. Anna, we made mistakes, but we're still your parents. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my legs deliberately, every movement calm, measured. For once, I wasn't the trembling girl begging for their approval. I was the one in control. You're right, I said softly. You are my parents. But parents are supposed to protect their children, not silence them. If you want to be part of my life now, it will not be on your terms. It will be on mine. My mother blinked rapidly. Confusion etched across her face. Terms? Yes, I said firmly. Conditions. Because this. I gestured around the office, the walls filled with the voices of survivors, was built on truth. And if you want to stand in my truth, you're going to have to live differently than you ever have. They sat frozen as I laid it out. First, therapy. Real therapy. Not a few polite sessions. You both will confront the choices you made, the silence you enforced, and the damage it caused. You will not use words like reputation or family honor again. Ever. Those words don't heal anyone. They destroy. My father stiffened, but I didn't pause. Second, you will stop pretending Emily doesn't exist outside your control. She is your daughter. If you want to earn forgiveness, you will reach out to her and you will listen. Not lecture. Not command. Listen. My mother's eyes brimmed with tears, but I pressed on. Third, you will never again ask me to be silent. About anything. About my work, about Emily, about what happened. My voice is not negotiable. I leaned forward, locking eyes with them. You taught me that obedience was survival. I learned the opposite. Obedience was death. My voice saved me, and it will always save me. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. My father's face was pale, unreadable. My mother whispered, barely audible, "We don't know if we can do that." I stood, the bracelet at my wrist glinting in the light. Then you don't know if you can be in my life. The words didn't tremble. They didn't crack. They landed heavy, final. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't vengeful. But I was resolute. They wanted access to the daughter they had cast aside. Then they would have to earn it. Weeks passed before I heard from them again. I half expected silence, half expected the same old resistance. But then, one morning, an envelope arrived at my office. Inside was a handwritten note in my mother's familiar script. We've started therapy. It's harder than we imagined, but we are trying. We're listening to Emily now. We know it's late, but we don't want it to be too late. I sat there for a long time, the paper trembling slightly in my hands. For years, I had begged for acknowledgement. Now, finally, it was beginning, not perfect, not instant, but real. Emily called me that night. Her voice was tentative, but lighter somehow. They actually listened today, Anna. For the first time, they didn't interrupt me. They didn't tell me to stop crying. They just listened. I closed my eyes, relief flooding through me. That was all I had ever wanted for her, for both of us. In the quiet that followed, I thought back over the years, the hospital lights, the slammed doors, the hunger, the long nights of doubt. The pain was real, but so was the transformation. Every scar was a thread in the tapestry of the woman I had become. I reached for my grandmother's bracelet, cool and steady against my skin. Her voice echoed in memory. Use your voice. I had. And that voice had built a life, a movement, and a freedom no one could strip away. As I stood by the window overlooking the city, lights glittering like tiny stars, I whispered words that felt like both a promise and a declaration. I spoke anyway, and I'll never stop.